Hey everyone! I was not able to record a regular video in New York City this week as I have few things going on at the same time, like jury duty. Yeah, that's always fun. And then as you see, I had to travel to the city of Boston one more time. The last time I posted a video about Boston, I did a lot of walking. This time, I did a bit more driving. And I have to seriously ask my fellow Bostonians, what is up with your roads? I mean, every single road is just terrible. It's like the roads have not been fixed since the 1930s and all they did is patch them up. So that now there is a patch on top of a patch on top of a patch. I always complained about the roads in New York City, but after driving around in Boston, I take it all back. But while there, I did get a chance to visit two cool places, so let me share them with you. First, the Frederick Law Olmsted House. For some of you, this name might sound familiar, and that is because I have spoken of him few times on this channel already, as some of the locations I was looking at in New York City were designed by him, or at least his firm, which he created. His probably most famous designs in New York City were that of Central Park in Manhattan and Prospect Park in Brooklyn. However, many parks and locations throughout New York City are Frederick's designs. Therefore, he had an enormous impact on how the city was shaped. In 1883, hence by now he was in his early 60s, he moved his home and office to this here 2-acre property in Brookline, where he continued to be active for a few more years until his retirement, this time creating parks in the city of Boston. So it only seems fair that I visit the home of this person who had such an enormous impact on New York City. It is really a gorgeous house, but unfortunately, as you see, it is going through restoration. However, the National Park Service is looking after the house, and the staff is super friendly, and they offer tours of not just the home itself, but also the gardens, if anyone is interested. I know that this does not look impressive, maybe on camera, but I love this tree in front of the house. It really provides like an extra layer of charm and beauty to the outside. I mean, trust me, if you would see it for yourself, I think you would agree with me. I did not stay for the tour of the gardens as my time was a bit limited, like always, and some of you see by now that on this channel I always try to make it count and explore as much as I can. And so I also wanted to see one more place before I left, which was fairly nearby, and that is the Waterworks Museum, which is so cool. I mean, look at even this stunning building from the outside. This place will teach you about the history of Boston's water supply. I did few videos about New York City and the history of fresh water, like the Ridgewood Reservoir on the border of Brooklyn and Queens, and the Croton water supply. So definitely check out those videos if you want to learn a bit more about the history of New York City's water. But here, we have that of Boston. I love to learn about topics like these because many of us really are lucky to just turn on our faucets and, well, there is water. But that was not the case throughout much of history. And so to study that history and understand it, it will make you appreciate what many of us take for granted today: water. This building was completed in 1888 at a time when Boston was in serious demand for a more modern and larger clean water supply. Not just because the city and its population were growing, but also due to events such as the Great Fire of 1872, which was Boston's most devastating fire in history. On the other side of the street is the Chestnut Hill Reservoir, from which the water would flow inside of this here building and be pumped to another much higher reservoir called Fisher Hill, from which water would be distributed to the city by simply gravity. But how exactly did the water get pumped uphill to the Fisher Hill Reservoir, which is about a mile away? Well, it was done using these here steam-powered engines. This is amazing. Inside we have 3 different steam engines which were used to pump water to that reservoir uphill. This here engine, for example, is 5 stories high, 3 above ground and 2 below us. It is massive. When you walk around this hall, you cannot just help but stare with amazement at these machines, which ultimately used very simple principle behind it. You had coal, which was burned to heat water, water boiled and turned into steam, and these here engines were powered by steam, running 24 hours a day, pumping water to that higher reservoir for the city to use. Hence, millions of gallons of water being pumped every single day. And this here, my friends, is one of those things that made the city function and give it life. This room right here is called the screen room. So the floor on which we are standing on was not here, and below us are huge pipes bringing water into the facility. And screens would be placed in front of the pipes to filter out large debris like rocks, branches, leaves, fish, so that they would not damage the engines as the water was being pumped. I have to be honest, it is really an amazing experience walking around here, and definitely worth a visit if you will ever be in the city of Boston. They even have few examples of various tools and wrenches which were needed to operate on these engines. I mean, take a look at these here. Now that's a wrench. But this location was decommissioned in the 1970s, and today it's a museum. But before I left, I had to use the restroom, which is on the bottom floor. But once I got there, I totally forgot to use the restroom once I saw these. This right here is an example of a toilet from 1891. Certainly not something you can buy at Home Depot today. And then the one on the left is an example from the 1800s. Something fairly common before indoor plumbing. So you would do your business and then empty out the chamber, and yeah, so simple as that. Just don't confuse it with the dining room chair. So then I had a little bit more time and I wanted to do some walking, checking out the city. I'll be honest, since I'm a historian, I was also thinking about like the geography of the city, the American Revolution and things like that. Weird ideas going through my head. But the weather got pretty nasty pretty quickly. At one point it was hot and humid, sunny, then all of a sudden, in about a span of 15 minutes, a cloud came in and it rained heavily. So I had to run to my car, getting pretty badly soaked in the process. And then 20 minutes later, again beautiful and sunny. If it wasn't for some places with big puddles, you wouldn't even know that it was raining 15 minutes ago. But then about an hour later, same thing happened. So it was really sort of like a repeat. And since I didn't have an umbrella with me, by the end of the day, I looked and smelled like a New York City subway rat. But here we are, at the end of our video, and Harvard University. So maybe some of you heard about this school. I guess it's alright. I mean, I never applied here for a teaching position, but now, given my celebrity YouTube status, I don't see why they wouldn't accept me with open arms. But all jokes aside, it is an amazing place. And coming out of high school, I never even really considered applying here because, well, it's in Boston and I wanted to stay in New York City. And I never did regret that decision. However, as you get older, you begin to have these thoughts going through your head sometimes. You know, these questions, what if? Because I did have the grades and everything else to apply. And so, as I stand in front of the philosophy building, analyzing my life choices, I hope all of you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next week, this time back in New York City, in Brooklyn. Bye.